There is a lot of, I couldn't help but think watching this thing and learning about NXIVM and some of the programs that they had was there's a lot of really good positive things that he was doing. A lot of the ideas, a lot of the principles, like being disciplined and, thinking outside the box and a lot of the principles in there combined with, his entrepreneurial spirit. You got to respect him as an entrepreneur. It's almost like when that kind of mixes with his deep inner sociopathic evil, whatever evil is in him from when he was a child, and he starts to gain more and more power, do you think maybe it spiraled out of control at one point, or do you think his intent was evil in the beginning?
Well, I think his intent was basically to take advantage of people, that he was basically a con man, a grifter who took advantage of people all of his life. He exploited girlfriends. For example, I had a call from one of his college girlfriends who was terrified of him. He had stalked her after she had spurned him. And going all the way back to his grade school days, he was a very malevolent, controlling, manipulative person. It was almost like he was like the bad seed, and that he was hardwired to be a psychopath from his earliest recollections. I mean, his family really wasn't a bad family. He claimed that his mother wasn't a good mother. He made all kinds of claims about having a bad childhood. But from what I gathered over the years, his parents were basically pretty good people. And they tried to be good parents and raise him in a reasonable way. But he was arguably just kind of a bad seed. Some people think psychopaths are born. I would argue that Keith Raniere might be an example of that. As he garnered more and more power, he became intoxicated with it. No question about that. The more influential people that gathered around him, the more he felt that he was omnipotent, that he was indestructible. And with the Bronfman money, millions and millions of dollars, he was able to harass his critics. For example, me, I had deprogrammed 3 people from the NXIVM group on behalf of a family in New Jersey. One of their children, I was unsuccessful with working with him, but 3 of their adult children left NXIVM as a direct result of my work. And later, I was given, through one of the children of the family, the study notes for taking the NXIVM courses. And I gave those notes to a clinical psychologist and a forensic psychiatrist. And they wrote papers, which are published at culteducation.com in this very large archive about NXIVM that you can find there. And these papers were then published around 2001, 2002, and Raniere immediately went after me. He went after me for copyright infringement, intellectual property trade secret violation, defamation. All told, according to my lawyers, he spent over $5 million suing me over a period of 14 years. The lawsuit was finally dismissed just before he was arrested. He also spent hundreds of thousands of dollars having me surveilled. He hired a private investigation company, Interfor, on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, and he gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars to stalk me, go into my bank account, my bank records illegally, my phone records illegally. One of the reasons, or one of the crimes that Nancy Salzman, his cohort, is going to be in prison for over 3 years, is hiding information that she should have disclosed in the lawsuit, the federal lawsuit against me, in discovery. And when her home was raided, not only did they find $500,000 in cash, and by the way, Raniere had 9 million in one checking account that they found, but Salzman kept files on the perceived enemies of NXIVM. And when I testified at Raniere's criminal trial, which was eerie, seeing him in the courtroom like that, a file was brought to me by the prosecutor and placed in front of me. And she said, have you ever seen this file? And I said, no. And there it was, my file, my SP file, or whatever you want to call it. And there were documents in it that I have no idea how he got them or she got them. But it was evidence of their just relentless pursuit of their perceived enemies, their critics. And so if it wasn't for the fact that I had a pro bono law firm working to defend me for nothing, which was the law firm Lowenstein Sandler in New Jersey, Peter Skolnick, Michael Norwick, and also Douglas Brooks, an attorney from Massachusetts who had initially knew Raniere because he had sued him when he had his multi-level marketing scheme, Consumer Byline. So it was with all these pro bono lawyers, including the Berkman Center at Harvard University, Public Citizen in Washington, D.C., that I was able to stand this withering barrage of litigation, an army of lawyers that Raniere paid with the Seagram's heiresses' money and put after me. And I was one of only, there were many other people that were pursued. Some of them were sued into bankruptcy because they weren't as fortunate as me to have pro bono legal help. Tony Natale suffered horribly. A woman that turned against Raniere in Washington, Susan Dones, also went bankrupt. And he would just keep hounding these people. It was just unbelievable, the kind of maliciousness that there was in this guy.
Yeah, the beginning of that documentary, when I started to hear Nancy Salzman talk about things like NLP, the only person I've ever heard say that is Tony Robbins. So I'm instantly like thinking like, okay, this is a lot like a Tony Robbins seminar. That's what I thought of. But then, so you're like, okay, this is a good thing. Then you start to get to the dark, slavery, branding, sex manipulation type shit. And that's where it goes south fast. So when it comes to meeting these people and deprogramming them, is there a sort of playbook that you use, or is there a process to reverting these people out of this mindset or ideology?
Yes, there is. And my book, Cults Inside Out, has chapters devoted to that. There is a chapter on intervention, preparation for an intervention, and then there are case vignettes. For example, a Scientology intervention, an abusive controlling relationship intervention. Basically, a cult intervention takes 3 to 4 days, 8 hours a day. So we're talking about 24 to 32 hours of work. Like a drug or alcohol intervention, the family's there. And I'm going to cover 4 basic blocks during that intervention. Number 1, I'm going to talk with them about what defines a destructive cult, or an abusive controlling relationship, or a narcissistic personality profile. What research is there to document that? And how might it parallel that person's situation that they find themselves in? Number 2, how does coercive persuasion really work? What we call brainwashing is really a synthesis of influence techniques, thought reform, and coercive persuasion. So we examine that, the mechanics of that, the social isolation, the control of information, the demand for personal confession. For example, the EMs, the exploration of meaning sessions in Raniere's NXIVM. And then you ask the question, is it coercive persuasion? What is the indoctrination process really all about in this group or in this situation that you're involved in? And then 3, what information has the group withheld from you? What secrets are there that you don't know, but you should know if you're going to continue with this organization or with this leader? And then finally, why did your family stage this intervention? What do they see that maybe you don't see? What are they worried about? what problems have they experienced, or estrangement do they feel has occurred as a result of your involvement with this group. So you go through those 4 blocks, and it's really an educational process and a dialogue, a discussion. And the family is offering their firsthand accounts, their observations. And what you're hoping is that you can have a kind of ignition point where the person's critical thinking comes into play, and they literally think their way out of the group, of the situation.